Welcome back to the Early Retirement Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about which state you should retire in. Now, I tell this to all my clients, don't retire in one state because that's the best tax strategies and you're going to minimize tax bill if you have no friends or family that are there. It does not make any sense. Make sure you are absolutely retiring where you're excited to retire. Now, some of you I recognize are like, look, we're going to travel big the first few years of retirement, or we're going to live overseas. So like, we just want a home base. And so we're just wondering like, what's the most optimal decision? I get that. That I'm 100% on board with. But I have people that reach out that have $5, $10, $15 million. And they're like, optimally, I think I should live in Florida because there's no tax and this is going to be really attractive. And I said, great. Like, do you want to live there? And they're like, absolutely not. Like, sounds terrible. Like, my friends are here in California, but like the taxes are just crushing me. I'm like, no, I get that. And I live in California. I pay a lot in taxes. I would love to minimize my taxes, but I also recognize my friends and family are here. So it's almost like I pay that cost and I choose to do it. So we just want to know if we're going to retire, are we optimizing where we're living? And the factors I looked at were the following. I looked at economic data, healthcare statistics, and lifestyle factor. So we're going to go through the primary states we're going to be discussing today: Florida, Arizona, Tennessee, and North Carolina. I've got a ton of different fun stuff I'm excited to go through with you. If you don't already know, my name is Ari Taubli. I'm a certified financial planner. I'm the host of this show, the Early Retirement Podcast, and I am the Chief Growth Officer at Root Financial. If you get excited with any strategy I talk about, before you actually execute, please be smart about this. This should all be construed as no financial advice. It should not be construed as financial advice. That would be proper English. And this is for fun, educational, informative purposes only. I cannot talk today. Not very helpful for a podcaster. But I get excited when I get to talk about certain topics, and this is one of them. So I want to start going straight into it. Of course, I'm going to always have this be a podcast episode on the podcast applications and on YouTube as video format. So number one is Florida. Florida is a big spot for retirees for a few reasons. Well, there's no income tax, so significant savings if you're withdrawing from retirement accounts, Social Security, the warm climate year-round, obviously, and then extensive healthcare infrastructure for aging population, some statistics around it. No state income tax, 1,350 miles of coastline, over 1,000 golf courses, 2.8% lower overall cost of living compared to the national average, and a high concentration of healthcare facilities per capita. Now, those are the pros. The cons: the state faces increasing property insurance costs due to natural disaster risks, and popular areas have seen sharp increases in housing costs. Of course, hurricane risk and humidity. Florida is the go-to for a lot of people. Totally recognize why. I do want you to always, though, take a step back before you actually retire somewhere and go, do I want to be there? I know I mentioned that early on, but I don't want someone to go retire and go, yep, I just saved $30,000 a year in taxes and I don't like my life anymore. That defeats the purpose. I want you to live your dream life. And sometimes that's also for many of you like, look, I'm living my dream life if I'm saving $30,000 a year in taxes. So that's Florida. Arizona, compelling mix of beauty, relatively affordable housing in many areas, dry climate, 300 plus days of sunshine annually, 15% lower healthcare costs than the national average, median home price, you might not know this because I did not, 8% below the national average, robust healthcare infrastructure, mainly just Phoenix and Tucson, and then multiple nationally ranked hospitals. My dad had 2 heart attacks when he was in Mexico surfing. He had a heart attack, flew him to Arizona, forever grateful. That state has a big spot in my heart. The challenges: it is crazy hot in the summers. So I had a client that moved to Arizona and they were like, it's because, so they moved from New Jersey to Arizona, a lot of the reasons I mentioned there, and they loved it for 9 months, not from June to August, not a fan. So in those months, they're like, look, we just kind of stayed indoors. We didn't plan our retirement for also having a secondary home or traveling somewhere else. So consider Seattle. Now, only saying consider because I had a client. So one, I went to college up in Seattle, and I think that's the best place in the world for summers. If you have a different thought or argue differently, let me know in the comments or leave a review. Shoot me a note in any way. You can, of course, go to my website, earlyretirementpodcast.com, to email me. And I only say this because this couple, not the one that moved from New Jersey to Arizona, but a different couple that went to Seattle for the summers, they're like, this is the best. And they did Vrbo, which I did not know about, but do you guys know this? VRBO. So not Airbnb, but like you go get a place for a month or 2 months or 3 months or whatever you want, long-term stays. And they did that and they loved it. So their plan is now to do a different state each year. So they did Seattle, Washington. Now they're going to do, I think it was like Minnesota. I don't know why Minnesota in the summer, but that's what they want to do. So consider that. Tennessee. Tennessee has emerged as a leading retirement destination, and that is due to low cost of living, no state income tax, diverse geography. You got mountain and urban. And then the state central location, easy access to different regions. Once again, no state income tax, 10.3% lower cost of living than the national average. That's 2.3% better than Arizona. Not the reason to go there, but important. 4 distinct seasons, and the winters are moderate. I have clients that send me photos. Yes, it's still winter, but it is moderate. If you live there, you can tell me otherwise. Strong healthcare system, and then rich cultural heritage and music scene. Community is tough, not in Tennessee. So something to consider. The challenge that I've seen, some areas, they face healthcare access issues. I have a client that is in rural Tennessee. So they had, it wasn't a heart attack, but a stroke of some kind, more complicated than that. If they're listening right now, trust me, I know I didn't explain that well. They were fine, but getting to a hospital took some time. It's like I spent some time in the Adirondacks in New York, so up north New York. It was a hassle getting to a hospital. It was about 3 hours. You're going to all think I'm idiots after this, but I'll tell you anyway. So there was a big peanut allergy. I worked at a camp called Brant Lake Camp. And this was when I was in college, so I don't know, 10 plus years ago. And I'm working there, and I chose that job because it paid the most out of any other job I could find. And I wanted to be a camp counselor and be away from, I just want to be on the East Coast for that summer. So I go to New York, gorgeous, Adirondacks. I saw photos of the sunset. I was sold. I'm getting there, and these kids, when I say these kids are stuck up. So I grew up in Malibu, and my parents did not have a ton of money, but my dad wanted to be near the ocean. That's why we lived in Malibu. And so he'd rather live in a shack, but be able to surf than be in the valley where it's super hot. So we're living there. People around us, super wealthy, wasn't us. My point here is I saw some brats, okay? That's me putting it nicely. Some of these kids are driving Lamborghinis. They're talking to teachers in high school in a way that you're like, look, they're still humans. It was like horrible. My point, I was at this camp. These kids were just attitude of the attitude. That is not the direction I meant to go here. The direction I meant to go here was my duty was like making sure peanut allergies were at a minimum. I'm Jewish. I don't have a peanut allergy, but this was a very Jewish camp, okay? So tons of allergies here, and you get there a week early. And I was there a week early, and so they're like, hey, if any of you guys have brought peanuts or almonds or all these different, I don't think almonds applied, but a bunch of other nuts they named, like make sure to eat those because we don't want this to be an issue in a week from now when the kids arrive and we're prepping it. So I was trying to gain weight, so I'm having a lot of protein. So I had all these walnuts, and this is a longer story than any of you guys ever asked for, and I don't blame you if you're skipping right now. But I had all these walnuts, and I'm just going to finish the story real quick. And I was like, I need more protein. Walnuts have good protein. And it turns out I'm allergic to walnuts. So all I ate was walnuts, and I'm like, why is my throat hurting? Maybe it's a lack of protein. I mean, how stupid am I? So I'm having more walnuts. And so basically my throat comes out to here, and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. I don't want to be a hassle, but like, I'm not even saying this. I'm like typing it because I can barely talk. And so my whole neck is swollen. Getting to a hospital was a pain. 3 hours away. Hope that never happens to any of you guys, and probably a story you could have lived without. If you have a good medical story, by the way, that will make me feel better than that, let me know in the comments. Okay, next state, last state here, North Carolina. North Carolina offers a balanced approach to retirement with varied geography, mountains to beaches, moderate climate, strong health care. The state's tax treatment of retirement income is also favorable, and cost of living is competitive. So Social Security income is tax exempt, meaning there's federal Social Security and then there's state Social Security taxation. So Social Security income is tax exempt in North Carolina state. 5% lower cost of living, the national average. Top tier healthcare, you've got Duke and UNC right there. Diverse recreational opportunities, and apparently strong sense of community. I only have like a few clients in North Carolina. I don't know why, so I can't talk to it in great detail. But growing popularity has led to increased housing costs, particular in the Research Triangle and coastal regions. So I want to go over that. Those are the 4 states to consider. And then I want to go over some stats. So this was from an economic analysis. Florida sees an annual economic impact of $150 billion from retiree spending. Arizona's retirement communities contribute $12 billion annually to the state economy. So like this is big. North Carolina's retirement communities have created over 50,000 jobs. In terms of financial considerations, the things that I tell my clients, number 1, evaluate total tax burden, not just the income tax. So if you're just going to Florida for income tax, but you're actually going to have way more taxes because of all these other reasons, like that defeated the purpose. Consider long-term health care and insurance availability. Factor in property taxes. Are you going to rent in retirement? Property taxes, how do you want to structure that? In California, there's a few different options. So you can say, I want to keep my house in my name. And then if my kids inherit it, they keep my property taxes. You can say, no, I want to put it in their name. So defeats the step up in basis because it's now in their name, but property taxes at that point, stay competitive. So it just depends what you're looking for. Research cost of living trends over the past decade. So no matter where you're going to live, if you go to North Carolina, but you're in the wrong part, obviously it plays a big role. Lifestyle visit during different seasons before committing. You probably know this story, but I have a client that loved Hawaii so much for a month, not forever. Well, they bought a home, big financial hit. So like go to Hawaii at different times of the year. It's gorgeous literally almost all of the year, but it's worth considering, especially Kauai. It rains a lot there. Research healthcare facilities and specialists, evaluate proximity to family and travel hubs. I have a couple that moved from, I think it was Sacramento, I think it was Elk Grove, anywhere right near Northern California. And they moved there and they were living in, I forget, but somewhere in Arizona. And they were like, we're going to be with grandkids, but not that much, once every few months. They wanted to be with them all the time. So they're paying for these plane tickets constantly, moved to Arizona for the weather, but also because of state tax reasons. And they're like, look, I don't even know if we're coming out on top because we fly to see our grandkids all the time. And because our backs hurt, we fly first class only. So like if they're flying every week, you defeated the purpose. So consider family. And hey, if you think you're going to really want to be around them, consider amenities and social opportunities. So we'll call this ROH, return on hassle. I live right next to my brother. My brother lives right next door. We own a semi-professional soccer team. We would argue our team would not play as well if we did not live next door. Because if I have an idea of like, hey, I think we should play this new system, I want to be able to walk over right now and tell him versus save it for later and then I never get it to him. If you guys are like, hey, we want to play a lot of card games in retirement, or it turns out we want to be part of a golf community or whatever it is. If you're not walking distance from that community, like you will just see it less often. It will not be as fun. I have couples that have no desire in any way to be in a retirement community. And they're like, we want to live on our own and we make food at home. I have others that are like, I never considered it, but the fact that I could have food made for me and I don't have to do anything and it's a cafeteria, like that's my style. I get to talk to people. Great. Like you guys get to choose. Future outlook, things to think about is technology infrastructure. So like eminent domain and things like that is not something to worry about in retirement. It of course could occur if you own any home, but mainly like, hey, is this going to Austin, Texas, becoming a very tech forward town? Is that a community you want to be in? Are you in a community with mixed ages? I have retired couples that are like, I like being with young people only because they think more, whatever for me. I have couples that say that. I have other couples that are like, I want to be around people like me in my stage of life. So it depends. I would argue you can find people anywhere. The conclusion, Florida, Arizona, Tennessee, North Carolina, on paper, the best states to retire to. There are, of course, benefits if you're going, well, should I be in South Dakota because of the way I can set up my business and my income if I'm overseas, or what other benefits exist if I go to Washington? Should I go buy a camera in Oregon because no sales tax? Like, yeah, we could go through this all day and maybe I'll do, if you guys want, a future episode on just like the absolute financial benefits of every single state. But for today, this is just retirement, how to think about retirement in a certain state. So hopefully this was helpful. I don't think it was my best episode, I will admit, because I'm doing some research on these different states and I try to bring in my client stories, but always trying to do my best. So guys, appreciate you guys as always listening and tuning in. I appreciate any reviews. That's what helps this grow. So leave comments, leave a review if you want other people to retire with confidence. And I don't take it lightly when you share this with coworkers and friends. So thank you guys.